heaviest drums in the movement anyway. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Ashtotter to the Srimad Divine Grace. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Ashtotter to the Srimad Divine Grace. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna. What's this? So, one note on the last line of that song. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. The usual pronunciation of the river is Yamuna. And some of you are pronouncing it Yamuna. But this is Yamuna. because it's of the Yamuna. It is the bank of the Yamuna. Yamuna Tira means on the shore of the Yamuna. Krishna is sporting there, he's dancing. So try to remember next time. Yamuna Tira. Just a note on pronunciation. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 14th day of December 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are still in Chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, text number 26, at the bottom of page 405 on most of your books. That's 926. Patram, Pushpam, Bhalam, Toyam, Yome, Bhaktya, Prayachati, Tadaham, Bhakyuparitam, Ashnami, Prayatatmanaha, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, Yome Bhaktya Prayachati, Tadaham Bhakyuparitam, Ashnami Prayatatmanaha, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, Yome Bhaktya Prayachati, Tadaham Bhakyuparitam, Ashnami Prayatatmanaha, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, Yome Bhaktya Prayachati, Tadaham Bhakyuparitam, Ashnami Prayatatmanaha. Dharma, you want to start? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Boo. Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, Yome Bhaktya Prayachati, Tadaham Bhakyuparitam, Ashnami Prayatatmanaha, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, Yome Bhaktya Prayachati, Tadaham Bhakyuparitam, Ashnami Prayatatmanaha. No. Go ahead.
Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam,
Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam,
Yome Bhaktya Prayachati,
Yome Bhaktya Prayachati,
Tadaham Bhaktya Uparatam,
Tadaham Bhakyuparitam,
Ashnami Prayatatmanaha.
Ashnami Prayatatmanaha. Chris, tonight? Not tonight. Anyone back there in the back row? Okay. Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, Yachati, Yome Bhaktya Prayachati, Tadaham Bhakyuparitam, Ashnami Prayatatmanaha. Badmano. Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, Yome Bhaktya Prayachati, Tadaham Bhakyuparitam, Ashnami Prayatatmanaha. Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, Yome Bhaktya Prayachati, Tadaham Bhakyuparitam, Ashnami Prayatatmanaha. Okay, one more pronunciation. 15 seconds. Second line, the word bhakti there, you see, the Y. Whenever you see a Y at the end there, and the next word begins with a vowel, which you're going to see. That Y goes with the next word. So it's bhakt-uparitam. Bhakt-uparitam. You see? Yeah, it doesn't have it's not a syllable of its own. You see? Bhakt-uparitam. It goes to the next. All right, word but it's not silent. It's just like bhakt-uparitam. Uparitam. Yeah, it goes to the next word. You pull it over. Okay, word by words. I'll read. You listen. Oh, sure.
The dot, when there's the dot in the bottom of the adi part, that means adi.
Did you talking about the word uparitam?
Yeah, you see there's a little dot.
Under the R. That's a vowel. It sounds like R-I, ri. Uparitam.
It's always E or it could be any vowel, depending on the case.
You're talking about this word uparitam?
Yes.
Okay. So that R with a dot under it is actually a vowel. And it's pronounced ri. Uparitam. If there's a line over, which is rare, but it happens, then it's not ri, but ri. It's a long. Yeah. You can. If you have the book, the hardback, there's a pronunciation guide at the back that's very useful. In fact, if you're really interested in learning verses, I have compiled a little sheet called Dravida's 6 Easy Steps in Learning Shlokas, which I'm willing to share for no cost. Just write to me. Dravida 108. I should have a website. Okay, write to me. All right, before we read this verse in purport, let me read the translation first. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Now, this is rare that I do this, but please bear with me. This is a revised edition of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, published in 1983. Preceding this was the first unabridged edition in 1972, and preceding that, many devotees don't know, is the abridged edition to the Bhagavad Gita, published in 1968. That abridged edition to the Bhagavad Gita had this purport to this verse. This is, and it's all about prasadam, which was very prominent and a very important part of preaching then and now. And but when the unabridged edition came out, that whole first paragraph was missing. It was there in the abridged, approved by Prabhupada. He was reading it, but somehow it was left out in the unabridged edition, Macmillan, 1972. So it was restored in 1983. It's the biggest revision that there was in the whole book, this whole paragraph. So now I'm going to read it, and you'll see why it's so important. Purport: for the intelligent person, it is essential to be in Krishna consciousness, engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, in order to achieve a permanent, blissful abode for eternal happiness. The process of achieving such a marvelous result is very easy and can be attempted even by the poorest of the poor, without any kind of qualification. The only qualification required in this connection is to be a pure devotee of the Lord. It does not matter what one is or where one is situated. The process is so easy that even a leaf or a little water or fruit can be offered to the Supreme Lord in genuine love, and the Lord will be pleased to accept it. No one, therefore, can be barred from Krishna consciousness, because it is so easy and universal. Who is such a fool that he does not want to be Krishna conscious by this simple method, and thus attain the highest perfectional life of eternally bliss and knowledge? Krishna wants only loving service and nothing more. Krishna accepts even a little flower from his pure devotee. He does not want any kind of offering from a non-devotee. He is not in need of anything from anyone, because he is self-sufficient. And yet he accepts the offering of his devotee in an exchange of love and affection. To develop Krishna consciousness is the highest perfection of life. Bhakti is mentioned twice in this verse in order to declare more emphatically that bhakti, or devotional service, is the only means to approach Krishna. No other condition, such as becoming a Brahmin, a learned scholar, a very rich man, or a great philosopher, can induce Krishna to accept some offering. Without the basic principle of bhakti, nothing can induce the Lord to agree to accept anything from anyone. Bhakti is never causal. The process is eternal. It is direct action in service to the absolute whole. And I will explain that sentence. Bhakti is never causal, which may puzzle you later on. Here Lord Krishna, having established that he is the only enjoyer, the primeval Lord and the real object of all sacrificial offerings, reveals what types of sacrifices he desires to be offered. If one wishes to engage in devotional service to the Supreme in order to be purified and to reach the goal of life, the transcendental loving service of God, then one should find out what the Lord desires of him. One who loves Krishna will give him whatever he wants, and he avoids offering anything which is undesirable or unasked for. Thus, meat, fish, and eggs should not be offered to Krishna. If he desires such things as offerings, he would have said so. Instead, he clearly requests that a leaf, fruit, flower, and water, flowers and water be given to him. And he says of this offering, I will accept it. Therefore, we should understand that he will not accept meat, fish, and eggs. Vegetables, grains, fruits, milk, and water are the proper foods for human beings and are prescribed by Lord Krishna himself. Whatever else we eat cannot be offered to him, since he will not accept it. Thus, we cannot be acting on the level of loving devotion if we offer such foods. In the 3rd chapter, verse 13, Sri Krishna explains that only the remains of sacrifice are purified and fit for consumption by those who are seeking advancement in life and release from the clutches of the material entanglement. Those who do not make an offering of their food, he says in the same verse, are eating only sin. In other words, their every mouthful is simply deepening their involvement in the complexities of material nature. By preparing nice, simple vegetable dishes, offering them before the picture or deity of Lord Krishna, and bowing down and praying for him to accept such a humble offering, enable one to advance steadily in life, to purify the body, and to create fine brain tissues which will lead to clear thinking. Above all, the offering should be made with an attitude of love. Krishna has no need of the food, since he already possesses everything that be. Yet he will accept the offering of one who desires to please him in that way. The important element in preparation, in serving, and in offering is to act with love for Krishna. The impersonalist philosophers who wish to maintain that the absolute truth is without senses cannot comprehend this verse of the Bhagavad Gita. To them, it is either a metaphor or proof of the mundane character of Krishna, the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. But in actuality, Krishna, the Supreme Godhead, has senses, and it is stated that his senses are interchangeable. In other words, one sense can perform the function of any other. This is what it means to say that Krishna is absolute. Lacking senses, he could hardly be considered full in all opulences. In the 7th chapter, Krishna has explained that he impregnates the living entities into material nature. This is done by his looking upon material nature. And so in this instance, Krishna's hearing the devotee's words of love and offering foodstuffs is wholly identical with his eating and actually tasting. This point should be emphasized. Because of his absolute position, his hearing is wholly identical with his eating and tasting. Only the devotee who accepts Krishna as he describes himself, without interpretation, can understand that the Supreme Absolute can eat food and enjoy it. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this is obviously a very important verse for our practice of Krishna consciousness and our understanding of Krishna's position. As Prabhupada mentions, Krishna has said that he is the object of all sacrifice. That's actually in the text 24, just 2 verses back. I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendent nature fall down. So, I promised to explain this statement at the end of the first paragraph. Bhakti is never causal. Now, this was a little puzzling when I first read it, but then I thought, there's a phrase. It first comes up in that I know of in the Bhagavatam, in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto, text number 6, where Suta Goswami is explaining what real dharma is. What is that dharma, the sages asked him, that can be performed to fully satisfy the soul? And he begins with this verse, Savai Pungsang Pado Dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje. Ahaitukya pratayata yatma supersediti. Atma supersediti means fully satisfying the soul, the Atma supersediti. So he says that dharma, or that practice, which evokes devotional service to Krishna. Paroda yato bhaktir adhokshaje. Now this name for Krishna, adhokshaja, it's not a name you'll find the Brijbasis chanting. Doesn't have anything to do with his Leela in Vrindavan. But it describes Krishna as the transcendental Lord. It's composed of 3 separate little words, Ada, Aksha, and Ja. Now Ja is short for Janma, or birth. So Aksha Ja, and Aksha symbolizes the senses beginning with the eyes. So that knowledge which we gain through observation and material senses, that is born from that, which is the ascending process of gaining knowledge, the scientific method. Krishna pushes that down. Adha. Adha means down. In other words, he's transcendental to that. He's beyond the range of our mind and senses, which is the very definition of transcendental. Now, why is it so important to emphasize that? Because in order to practice this Dharma, you have to have faith. You can't, it's not something that you can readily understand by using your material mind and senses, because we can't see Krishna. And that's why materialists think we're totally nuts. You know, we're worshiping statues, and we're believing on all these fantastic stories. I got work to do. You know, I got to make money. So they're missing out. But here, in this final, what is the status of the Srimad Bhagavatam? It's the ripened fruit of all the Vedic knowledge. You know, if you're looking to find out something from the Upanishads and the Puranas and read the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, it all culminates in Srimad Bhagavatam. Well, let's say this, that the summary of the philosophy is there in the Vedanta Sutra, and the full commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, according to Lord Chaitanya and according to Bhagavatam itself, is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this ahoituki, now what does this mean? Means without any material motivation. This comes up in the Shikshastika. Many of you are familiar with Shikshastika. These are Lord Chaitanya's 8 instructions on the holy name, on the chanting of the holy name. Very important for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So in the 4th verse there, he's teaching us how to pray. Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, is taking the role of a sadhaka here, and he's saying, this is how we pray. Nadanang najanang nasundarim kavitang va jagadish kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavadad bhaktir ahoituki. There's the word again, ahoituki. Now the word hetu means cause. So ahoituki, without cause, without material motivation. It's kind of a code word here. This bhakti is never causal. Bhakti is not, people worship God for so many reasons. Even Krishna says in the 7th chapter, there's 4 kinds of people who approach me, right? Chatur vidha bhajante mam jana sukata norjana. Sukata means pious people. These are religious people. But generally people go to God for asking something, right? And what do they? Arto jigyasu artarti. So this is, if they're in trouble, that's the first thing. If you just found out you got a diagnosis of cancer, if you're devout, you're a believer, you'll go to church and pray, please, let my treatment work, whatever. Or for my child, all these kinds of things. So this is called not ahoituki, it's anahoituki. There's a fruit you want. You're looking for something material. Prabhupada gave the example, or maybe he got it from a spiritual master. No, that wouldn't be chronology. He's talking about the wives of the German soldiers. Now, not only the wives, but they had husbands and sons who went to war, as well as their husbands and sons as their parents. So you had a father. So you had their male relatives were all getting drafted in the army and going to fight. So they were devout Lutherans, generally in Germany. You have the Lutherans. So they would go to church and pray and very intensely for the return of their male relatives. And many of them didn't come back, or they came back grievously wounded and so forth. And so many of them became atheists. They lost their faith in God. They had been devout worshippers all their lives. They went and sincerely prayed, and it didn't happen. So we're not meant to pray to Krishna for material things. I don't think anyone joined the Hare Krishna movement to become rich. You're not going to become rich. If you're going to do that, worship Shiva, worship Kali, worship, you can get that. But Krishna doesn't do that. He takes away. That's one of the reasons he's called Hari, is that he takes away your material desires. Sometimes it's a little painful. Yes, Prabhupada would identify with this verse. Prabhupada himself would say, I experienced this verse. This is spoken to Yudhishthir in the latter part of the 10th canto by Krishna. Yasyaham anagunnami harishe tad dhanang shanai. Which means that to those whom I show my real mercy, I gradually take away all their material wealth. So people who are materialists say, okay, you worship Krishna, not me, I'd rather not. So this is what it means. But so what are the devotees after? What does Lord Chaitanya say in this prayer that we should all know? Nadanang, nadanang. He's saying no for all the things that people normally ask for. First is wealth, maybe then followers. All these politicians, I don't know if they're devout, they'll pray for followers. Please, let me win the election. Nadanam, najanam, nasundarim. Now this word sundarim can stand alone, meaning a beautiful spouse, or it can go with the next word, sundarim kabitam, in Bhaktivinoda's translation. It means very beautiful or attractive knowledge, erudition, you see, which is a real opulence. This is one of the main 4 opulences: good birth, wealth, beauty, and high education. These are things that people strive for materially. So he says, no, I'm not praying for that either. Nasundanim kabitang ba jagadisha kamaye. Now, and he understands, I'm worshiping the Lord of the universe, so he can give me all these things, but no, I'm not asking for that. And then he says something really radical. Mama janmani janmani ishware. So what I'm praying for, I don't mind if I'm taking birth after birth. That means I'm not praying for liberation either, which is more valuable than anything material. Freedom from birth, old age, disease, and death. Let's go for it. He says, no, I'm not worried about that. I'll take birth and birth as long as I can have unmotivated, loving devotion to you. That's what you pray for. Now, I had the great good fortune of being a friend of Kushakrata Prabhu. Kushakrata was a I don't want to say he was an idiot savant. That doesn't, give him. He had a tremendous intelligence, but he was eccentric. He was down here, I understand, at one point, back in the 70s, doing book distribution. His means were he would go out with a T-shirt, a sweatshirt on, and then he would stand on the corner and he would just hold the book out to whoever came by. This was his method of book. He didn't do that so many books that way, but he was trying, So his book distribution career didn't last very long, but it was found that he had a tremendous brain. He taught himself Sanskrit, and I was there living with him in the same building. Those of you who have been to the facility in Watsek Avenue, the LA Temple, it's a whole series of buildings, a community there. So on the very corner of Watsek and Venice, there's the BBT building across the street from the parking lot. So there was one whole section of it at the height of the book production in the 70s when Prabhupada was, we had 17 books in 2 months he wanted us to put out, which is like inconceivable. Ramaswamy was in charge, said, Prabhupada, it's impossible. What did Prabhupada answer? Who knows the answer? Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary, which was a revolutionary statement. And Ramaswamy said, okay. And so there was a morning walk. They're walking on Venice Beach, right? And so Radha Ballava, who was the manager then, he was production manager and everything. So they dropped back on the walk, and Prabhupada continued walking with the leading disciples, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there and all these others. And so they're furiously consulting with each other. Well, how is it possible? You go to any commercial publisher, they'll say, well, okay, we can have this one book published in 3 months. Publish means they do set the type and all of the things that go into making a book, 17 books in 2 months? Wow, So so they came back and said, probably we can do it, but we have to have you, you have to grant us these concessions. We have to be able to consult you wherever you are in the world, because he's always traveling now, through the phone or through telegrams or something in quick form of communication. Prabhupada agreed to that. We have to be able to get any devotee, at least from the United States, English-speaking devotee, who has some skills on editing or proofreading or indexing, very important, and fly him into LA for the marathon. In other words, we need to be able to have all human resources. You got it, all these things. The artists, another thing was, the art takes a long time to print, to do. You can imagine doing these final, how long these paintings took? Each one took a few months, They didn't have a few months because they needed like 20 paintings for 17 volumes, 30, 40 paintings. So they said, okay, so you can send someone to India, buy him a motorcycle, and he can travel around to all the places Lord Chaitanya is mentioned in the CC. Those who read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya went on his South Indian tour. And he can take pictures of those temples and places, and that can be part of the illustration. It relieves a lot of pressure on the artist, you understand? So all of these conditions were met. And then the marathon was on, and I wasn't part of it at first. I was rather taking over what Jaya Swami, it wasn't the Swami then, it was the Brahmachari. He became full-time editor with Hayagriva, and I was doing the BTG, the Back to God editing, for the first month of the marathon. But then Hayagriva dropped out for various reasons I won't mention, and they needed another editor. So they had a test. There were several devotees there who really, skilled in English. But I had already had some experience editing Prabhupada on the BTG. So anyway, I won the contest, and I got to edit about 8 chapters, 4 or 5 in the CC, and also the 5th canto was part of it. This Hell's chapter we just read, I edited that. You wouldn't believe what I took out. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't want to scare him. No, it was quite a meditation. I'm sitting there, late at night, and working on these Hell's chapters. Anyway, it was ecstatic. So the point is that, what was the point on all that? Yes, Ohitaki. So Lord Chaitanya has taught us, and the Bhagavatam teaches us, that the ideal in bhakti is that you have no material motivation. It's not that there's no cause, you have a motivation, and the motivation is one motivation, somehow to please Krishna, you see? Having full faith that if you advance in this process and purify your heart, then that is the most blissful thing you can do. Because Krishna reciprocates. You want to please him and he wants to please you. That's why he makes it so easy to serve him here. As mentioned in this revolutionary first paragraph that Jayawada restored. Who would be such a fool if you understand the benefits? If you just, buy some fruit, in the market, or you pick some fruit from your garden or something, and you offer it with love and devotion. Here, Krishna, please take this, and this is all I have, or whatever. Then you can develop your love. That's the most valuable thing there is. Prema dhana. Dhana means a wealth. Prema dhana. Why is it so valuable? Because when you cultivate that attraction for Krishna, you lose your attraction for this material world. This is the first installment, because what keeps us coming back? You're passing out of this body, and there's all of those unfulfilled desires. If only this, if only this. So you get another body where you can try to fulfill it, and then you have to take in all the karma. If you've been very sinful, you're not even going to have a human body. So you're trapped here by your attachments. So those attachments can be purified. We're going to be attached. This idea that you can somehow negate all attachments and just be a blank, the impersonal idea, it's not going to work. Because we're spiritual beings. We're persons just like Krishna eternally. And therefore, that's something that it means to be a conscious living entity, to have desires. But if those desires are entangled up in this material world, then we'll keep coming back in this material, getting material body, which means suffering. We don't want that. There's so many instructions like that, in the Bhagavatam. Rishabdev, he gave so many lectures just on that first verse of Rishabdev, 551, which is all about a human life is meant for austerity, but tapasya. Divine penance, he said, penance on austerity. It's interesting, Prabhupada would always link them. Not just austerity, but penance on austerity. What does that mean? It means that you're performing austerity, recognizing the mistakes you made in being so attached and performing sinful activities. Penance means repentant. This is what Christianity is all about. You're not supposed to sin and then, and then get absolution and then go back to sinning. If you're really repentant, you'll stop it, right? Knowing that it's harmful to yourself and to others. So this idea, what does he say in that first verse? He says, you want to enjoy? Fine. But don't work hard trying to enjoy what even the hogs can enjoy. I put it into a little verse. I tweaked it a little bit. It's for general audiences. So it says, don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for hoggish happiness. Through bhakti yoga, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. The fact of the matter is that we're enjoying beings, because Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. We're part and parcel of Krishna. But right now, we're trapped in our syndrome of trying to enjoy matter and thus suffering birth after birth. If we learn the platform of true enjoyment, then there's no downside. It's like the more that we express our love for Krishna in a variety of ways in the spiritual world or in the material world, the more we'll try and find ourselves truly enjoying. And that enjoyment expands and expands. And that's what he says in the end of that first verse. Tapo divyam, perform divine austerities. Just like we're supposed to do, nobody in the Hare Krishna movement knows, or is it oh yeah, okay, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, no meat eating. For the materialists, impossible. I can't, is there, But it's not impossible. The Hare Krishna mantra makes it possible. If you're serious in chanting and you're getting a higher taste, and you know with your intelligence that these things are damaging to me, they're going to cause great suffering, then you can get the spiritual strength to give it up. Give those things up. And then Krishna is very pleased with that, and it gives you more spiritual and more taste. Just imagine if we could come to even a fraction of the taste and experience that Rupa Goswami has experienced while chanting the holy name. He says, Tunde tandavani ratin batanute tundavali labdhaye karna kroda kadambani gatayate karnabude vyakspiham chetak prangana sangini vijayate sarvendriyana kutim norjane janitaki yadvidavitai krishneti varnadvayi. What he's saying is, I don't know how much nectar these two syllables Krishna have produced. We're all chanting Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. It's blissful, but it's not like he says where it dances on my tongue and I want to have millions of tongues and mouths to taste the nectar of that holy name. He's tasting the real nectar of the name. When it enters the ears, I want to have millions of ears to drink in that superb, supremely nectar. And when it enters in the courtyard of the heart, all the senses become inert. My mind becomes completely fixed on Krishna. Lord Chaitanya heard this verse, he started dancing in ecstasy. Haridas Thakur was also there. This is the real description of the holy name. So why can't we taste it that way? Because we haven't developed that much taste. Because we're still materially conditioned. But if we practice nicely, then gradually. This is Lord Chaitanya, Rupa Goswami's instruction, right at the beginning of the Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu. He describes, these verses are quoted in a purport, I forget exactly where, in the Bhagavad Gita. So it describes very scientifically, Adav Shraddha, Tatak Saru Sangha, the Bhajana Kriya, Tato Anarta Nivristat, Tato Nishta Ruchistata. He's describing how, in the beginning, there has to be some preliminary interest and faith. Just like you're all here, sitting here, there's some faith that you're going to benefit here, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You've read the books and you want to learn more, So that's Adhav Shraddha, you're in the first step. Sadhu Sangha, you're associating with the sadhu, namely Srila Prabhupada, and each other, not me. But sadhu Sangha. So that's important because your Sangha, your association is going to form your desires, right? Sangat Sanjayate, what does it say? Sangat Sanjayate Kama, is that by association you develop your desires. If you're down the street just 100 yards or 100 feet, you'd be in the bar eating the pizza and drinking the beer and watching the games. A whole other, you got Sangha, right? You're there with the other guys and you're becoming attached. We don't want that. So here you develop a different Sangha. So what happens is as you practice bhajana kriya. You chant, you're chanting the holy name, you're worshiping the deity, you're practicing some form of bhajan. And if you get really serious, then eventually you take initiation, and you're going on. And what's happening? Anartha nivritti. The anartha is the unwanted things in the heart. This is what conditioning means. Just like you become habituated. You're all aware of the, what is it called? Opioid crisis, right? They had this whole thing with the what is it, OxyContin, which I learned some time ago means continuous, anyway, it's an opioid. And people want to get through their pains, and they all got addicted, some people overdose. It's horrific, So that, you go down that route, But this is much more wholesome. This is a better way, and you're getting rid of your anarthas, your attachments, and your worries, and all of these different things. And as you get clearer and clearer, you come to the point of nishtha, which is firm faith. Now you're really convinced because you experienced that. What is that? The faith that Lord Chaitanya defines in his instructions to Sanatana Goswami, Shraddha. Shraddha is the beginning, but that was preliminary faith. This is firm. And for Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohe Sudha Danashtoy Krishna Bhakti Kole Sarva Karma Katahoy. Means you're absolutely convinced by your own experience that all my aspirations in life will be fulfilled by the practice of Bhakti Yoga. The material things I have to do just to maintain the body, but I'm not going to go in that direction and aspire to get this position or this one, like that. I'm aspiring for the treasure of prema. And while you're doing this, the taste is increasing. The next sense is ruchi. Ruchi is there all along. The more pure you are, the more you enjoy being with devotees, worshiping the deity. Rata Yatra's coming, okay. In other words, you're enjoying, but you're not enjoying the sense gratification. It's all wholesome. It's all the reaction to sense gratification is birth, old age, disease, and death. The reaction to enjoying a ecstatic kirtan is moving further and further toward Goloka Vrindavan. So anyway, it goes on like that. Then there's a higher level. The ruchi, it deepens until it becomes real attachment to Krishna, which matures into bhava and then prema like that. That's the step-by-step idea. So that's real hope. That's the only hope in this world. Anything material, okay, we're going to really develop democracy. It can be wholesome. The peace movement I was part of, I told you must know by now, years and years. There's no peace in this material world. It's a constant struggle for survival. It's always going to be. And this Kali Yuga, that's what the name of the Yuga is. War. It's the war Yuga. Kali means struggle and strife and dissension. So here we are in the middle of it. But we can help counteract it and escape from it and develop perfection. So one of the ways is following this verse, learning to the Prabhupada was very, insistent on this. Whatever you eat, you have to eat only prasadam, because otherwise that's a big attachment to eating unoffered food, even if it's vegetarian. So this is such a wonderful purport. There's a lot here, and as I mentioned, it was restored to its wholeness in that first paragraph, which is very rich. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Any comments or questions? Go ahead, bro. Where's the mics?
Can you explain how eating food that's not offered to Krishna is sinful? Just for general people.
Yeah, I mean, there's degrees of sin. If you're eating a hamburger, it's one thing. If you're eating an apple, it's another thing. But both of them, it's the central principle of sinfulness, which is that you're taking the position of an enjoyer. That's your one and only identity when you're eating bhoga. I'm enjoying. And Krishna directed bhoktaram. Those who understand that I'm the enjoyer of all sacrifices and everything, who understand I'm the Lord of the world, and who understand that I'm the best friend of everybody, they attain real peace. Otherwise, it just deepens your attachments. Admittedly, it's a question of degree. If you're eating an apple, that's not so sinful, obviously, than eating a hamburger, because you're not causing much suffering. But you're still maintaining your attachment to the material world, because I'm enjoying it. That's my only motive.
It's kind of like stealing, also, right?
That's the basic principle of being here. That we're trying to steal what belongs. Everything belongs to God. I remember we had a BTG article of that title. That was the theme of Prabhupada's lecture. Everything belongs to God. Ishavashavidam Sarvam, the first verse or mantra of the Ishopanishad. So what does that mean? That's kind of scary. I mean, how am I going to pay my rent if everything belongs to God? You know? Well, you can pay your rent, understanding that what goes on in the apartment should also be, as far as possible, devotional service. Then it's perfectly fine. And to the material mind, it sounds like, what kind of a deal is that? You know? I mean, are you kidding? Wardrobe? You know? $25 a year on your wardrobe? And a visit to Vrindavan? I got to get the threads, you know? I got to get the bodily concept. What were you going to say?
So on the flip side of it,
Well, Mike, you have to get used to it because we have a bigger audience.
we want to offer Krishna things to Krishna that are palatable and enjoyable for his pleasure.
Exactly.
So we also understand that to waste grains, for instance, is sinful. So if someone makes a pot of oatmeal and they put over amount of salt where the preparation becomes unpalatable, naturally you wouldn't want to offer that to Krishna.
Right.
And if you're eating it but you're not enjoying it, you're just eating it because you don't want to waste the grains or whatever, would that still be considered sinful? Trick question.
Well, I guess the sin is in the fact that it's not meant for prasadam. That's the first thing. Whatever you do after that, it's not maybe not any more sinful because it's austere. You don't want to waste grain, so that's good. There's unlimited varieties of ways in which you can get entangled. The main thing is that the central motive of what you're doing, moment to moment. The more that you get used to the idea of offering everything, then you have a whole institution, like this whole date thing we're doing now, with Mahabharat and Pavamana and I, we chip in, we buy some dates for Krishna. So that's it's a sacrifice. I got to sacrifice the time, I got you going in there and, boiling and the Lakshmi and everything. But it's a pleasure, because you read in the Nectar of Devotion, you shouldn't come to the temple without some offering. So this kind of developed from that, where, we should try to offer it. So this, I'm not a cook, but I can boil water. I'm really good at that. I developed it. And so I had the boiling water, I pour it in, and it makes it, and Krishna's he made his own sweets, these sweets are incredible. These dates, you should try them. So maintaining that. And so when I take a date, every day I take a half a date, because they chop them up so they get the pits out. There's some bugs sometimes and worms in there, they have to get out occasionally. It's a reciprocation. We did all this thing you get the dates, and the devotees can enjoy the dates, and Krishna can eat the dates. So the enjoyment comes not so much in eating the date, a little bit of dates I eat, but in realizing, this is a whole exchange of love here. I'm helping Pavaman and Mahabharat do some direct service, by facilitating. So that's what happens. You see the full dimension of it. And it's just like, it's not alien to us. The best example is always a mother and child. You see a mother and child. The child doesn't know anything, completely dependent on the mother, And the mother is completely focused on the child's welfare, that is warm enough, is well fed, no diseases, And so it's all for the other. And if the child smiles a little bit, the 1-year-old or the 6-month-old, a day is made, The point is, it's selfless. Now it doesn't last. The child grows up and runs away from home. But it's the pure. Prabhupada gave that example, right? So imagine if that's your whole motive in life is to see how somehow or other if Krishna can be happy, then that's my happiness. Doesn't matter if I suffer or whatever, if I'm poverty-stricken. You just the perfect example, the Goswamis, all our great acharyas. They came from great wealth to poverty. How could they do that? Chakva turna mashesha mandala patim, shaining sadat tuchavat. That first line is full of so much instruction. They gave up quickly In other words, they didn't say, okay, let me plan it ahead. If I go for a few more years in this way, and then... torn them immediately. Ashesham under the Pati, they were like the prime minister and the finance minister in the government. They had Rupa Goswami cashed out, and he had a whole boat full of gold. You know how much gold is worth today? $2,000 an ounce or something? I mean, he was extremely wealthy, $100 million. He gave it up like that. And what was the eventual, they're walking around Vrindavan, they don't even have their own tree to live under. They're living under a different tree every night, walking around with kopans, begging for their simple prasadam from Madhukari, means from different, But what is the state of mind? What is their consciousness? Gopi bhavara sarvatabdalahali kallola magnomo. Again and again, diving into the highest levels of ecstasy of the Gopi Bhava, serving the gopis, just like we pray every morning. Incredibly, Prabhupada gave us this Tulsi prayer. The meaning of, the whole thing is in the meaning. If you really get into the meaning of that song and all of the other things and you meditate on it, this is how you get the full benefit. We're praying that, oh Tulsi, beloved of Krishna, please give me pure love for Krishna. I just want to be in Vrindavan so I can serve Radha and Krishna. Even if we don't fully mean it, or don't understand it, the depths of it, it's the fact that this is the goal. It has nothing to do with anything material. And that's the highest bliss that a living entity can experience, and it goes on eternally. It's not adyanta banta. Adyanta means a beginning and an end. It has no end. So what could be more valuable? But it depends on its very, Trinada Bisuni Chen, having a very humble view and trying somehow or other to serve Krishna, or at least serve the servants of Krishna, and somehow, and that's most pleasing to Krishna. And it's very paradoxical, because it's completely 180 degrees out of the egotistic, what's in it for me mentality, which is so pervading Kali Yuga. Anyway, I'll go on and on. All right, I'm going to do another verse. He's not going to do another verse. We ran out of time. How about a few poems instead? But that one verse with purport is worth reading again and again. And we'll continue. Next verse is, all these verses, this 9th chapter is so important, you can study it, Yat Karoshi Yat Asnasi. But we'll have to wait until Monday for that one. But in the meanwhile, just an example of one prayer where the ardent prayer is for love for Krishna. So Lord Rupa Goswami prays like this: Bhujanga de Prachandaka Spurada Kanda Chudankure Niranka Shadraganchala Brahmina Bodha Bringam Brahme Patanga Duhitustati Banakuti Rakeni Priye Padaspuratu Me Mahus Troy Mukunda Shuddha Rati. Let's just meditate on that last word. Shuddha Rati means pure love. This is what he's praying for. You wear the best of crests, a crown of perfect peacock plumes. Your dancing glances stun the bees meandering midst the blooms. You relish love play in a cottage by Kalindi's shore. O Krishna, may pure love for you be mine forevermore. This is the perfect prayer. Queen Kunti says, Tvayame nanda vishaya mati madhupate sukrita ratamud vahatadandha gange baugamadandvati. O Madhava, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of thee, not any other kind. As Ganges torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to thee. Any one of us can come before Giridhari, Radha Giridhari, and offer that prayer. No law against it. Then there's one more I'll share with you. This is every day when we greet the deities, I have a set of prayers. 3rd verse in the whole CC. You don't have to read the whole Chaitanya. You read this. This one you can offer the Gauritai. Monday, Monday Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Goldodehe Pushpavanto Chitra Shando Tamonoda. Monday Shri Krishna, I offer my obeisance unto Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. They have risen just like the sun and the moon over the horizon of Gauda, Bengal, in order to give everyone benedictions of pure love for Krishna. Perfect prayer for Gauritai. And then Radha Krishna, this prayer is from the Utkala Baladi, which is one of the, I think it's the final work of Rupa Goswami. And it's basically, he's just articulating his most ardent desires for service, like Raghunath Das and Vilapka Samanjali. So this is near the end. of the prayer. He says, Pashupala Varendyanandana Vadametang Moharati He Yuvam Bhavatu Paneho Bhave Bhave Bhavatore Bhavatam Mudeshume. O Radha Krishna, children of the best of cowherd men, this single boon I beg from you again and yet again. In all the countless births my endless sins will make me meet. Let all my love flow toward your luscious, lustrous lotus feet. Hare Krishna. So I can send you all this. You may not have to learn the Sanskrit, but you have to learn the English. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Now let's have a nice kirtan.